Good afternoon to our viewers in Europe and good morning to our viewers in the United States. My name is Steve Sokol and I'm the president of the American Council on Germany. Thank you for joining us for the fourth and final webinar in our series titled The Road to the Silver Economy Forum. The American Council on Germany is delighted to partner and support the Global Coalition on Aging for the 2024 Silver Economy Forum, which will take place in Berlin next month. And it really has been a pleasure to collaborate with the coalition on this series of webinars designed to set the stage in the run-up to the forum itself. We started the series in May by looking at demographic trends, and then we dug into the sustainable financing of healthcare systems in aging societies, and we explored the workforce implications of an aging society. The theme for the forum in Berlin is leading the future in an aging world. And in today's discussion, our speakers will start to get into this issue by exploring the ways in which companies in the healthcare and finance sectors are thinking about longevity and aging. We've got a great panel lined up, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion. It's now my great pleasure to welcome Melissa Mitchell. She's the Executive Director of the Global Coalition on Aging, and she'll introduce our speakers and moderate the discussion. Melissa, once again, thank you for the great partnership, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you so much to the American Council in Germany for partnering with us for what we know will be a very exciting Silver Economy Forum in Berlin this year. The webinar series, I think, has been incredibly eye-opening and helping to bring some new audiences here to the topic of the Silver Economy, healthy aging, and the work that we do at GCOA. In my role as Executive Director of the Global Coalition on Aging, I have the pleasure of working with our members and helping advance some of the critical topics that are related to some of the initiatives that are really related to these topics. So today, we are going to explore what it looks like to be a leader in the silver economy. As Steve mentioned, leadership is our theme for Silver Economy Forum 2024. Our membership of Global Coalition on Aging is a couple dozen global corporations who recognize that our future and our population is aging, and therefore we have to make adjustments in terms of policies, in terms of how we deal with our workforces, in terms of how we look at our products and services from a corporate point of view, and how do we make those changes to adapt to our ever-aging global society. And so I'm really delighted today to kind of tee up some of the topics we'll be talking about at Silver Economy Forum on October 16th, and to have with us two distinguished panelists, but two very engaged and really leading members across global society and within our membership of the Global Coalition on Aging. So I'm pleased to introduce Mike Devoy, who is the Chief Medical Officer and Executive Vice President for Medical Affairs and Pharmacovigilance for the Pharmaceutical Division of Bayer AG. And Cindy Hutchins is the Director of Financial Gerontology for Bank of America. So we're going to dig in kind of on both sides of this. You know, this is the health side, this is the finance side, and we have to really kind of consider those as two of the key areas that we want to get into. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is open up with a question to kind of lead into you guys. Please introduce yourself in your responses, and then we'll go from there. As Steve said, please feel free to put any questions into the Q&A, and we'll take a look at those as we go. So to start out on this topic of leadership in the silver economy, both of your companies, Bayer and Bank of America, really have emerged as leaders in this space. With you, Mike, Bayer has really helped define imperatives for healthy aging and what the future can and should look like. And at Bank of America, Cindy, you guys have helped define what is the longevity economy. How do we take action in this longevity economy? And you, as the world's first financial gerontologist, I think only still, is an incredible way to say we're stepping out on this issue. So I want to ask kind of this broad question, because we've been doing at GCOA, we've been doing this for 13 to 14 years now, and really trying to get the engagement across global society and business and the business community. Why do you think your companies get it? Why do you think your companies are positioned in a way to say, we recognize these global trends, but others haven't yet? How have you guys viewed your kind of aha moment in this space in terms of, if we address the silver economy and healthy aging, we're doing good for our business and we're doing good for the world? So I'm going to let Mike take that one first. And again, please introduce yourself and maybe address this broad question.
Thank you, Melissa, and great pleasure to be here today with you and Cindy as well. My name is Mike Devoy. As you said, I'm the Chief Medical Officer of Bayer, and I take care of our medical activities worldwide and our patient safety. And this is certainly an area of passion for me. I'm not sure if it was like a light bulb aha moment, but we've been working with the Global Coalition for over 10 years now. And that really reflected what we could see as the societal trends, that we'll have 2.1 billion people over the age of 60 in 2050, that a large proportion of these will not just be in what we might see as the traditional aging societies of North America, Western Europe, developed countries, but also a major topic across all societies, developing economies as well. And we need to address this, we believe, in what we and you call a sustainable way. So this is, how do we bring together all these different activities and actors that impact on the economic, social, healthcare areas, so that we can really turn what's a great opportunity into something that's valuable. But we really have to address that, I believe, actively in this very holistic way, which is where I think GCOA does such a fine job. And we also now living in the decade of healthy aging, which I think is such a good platform for what we're doing. And then why Bayer? Well, Bayer is a company with broad interests in healthcare, nutrition, personal care. And we have a mission about helping enable people to live long and healthy lives as part of our vision of health for all, hunger for none. And we are a company which invests a lot and does a lot of work in bringing medicines to market for diseases which are disproportionate in people as they age, such as a cardiovascular disease, heart failure, chronic kidney disease, eye disease, and cancer. So that really brings us into areas where the aging of populations bring more of these diseases to the fore. But we realize just focusing on our own swim lane, so to speak, is not enough, because, as I said, we need to have a whole societal policy approach to making people in a situation where they can have productive, long and healthy lives for as long as possible. So for us, this is really an opportunity to be part of the discussion in the public space, and one where you, as GCOA, are able to really, in events such as the Silver Economy Forum, events such as this, really create a town square where we can all come together. And for me personally, that's always one of the most fascinating things, that I can learn and listen to someone like Cindy, who would not normally be part of my daily discourse. So that's sort of my introduction to why I'm here, why Bayer has been such a long-term partner with you, Melissa.
Well, thank you, Mike, and for all the support and leadership over the years, as you describe. We see the challenges with many of the diseases and conditions that do increase in prevalence with age, and therefore our approach to how we address that and how we get medicines to market, how we address the needs of living longer, healthier, not just longer lives, but also healthier lives, really becomes an imperative in your role, and that is so critical. So thank you for that introduction. Cindy, I'm going to turn it to you to introduce yourself and tell us about your aha moments. I am not hearing you, Cindy. Is that just me?
Is that better?
There you are.
So I'm Cindy Hutchins. I'm Director of Financial Gerontology here at Bank of America. And, I've had a couple of aha moments throughout my 40-year career. Hard to believe it's been 4 decades since I did financial services. But when I started in this business in the late 80s, the questions that clients were asking around retirement were things like, how do I use my savings to supplement my Social Security and my pension so that I can get through the next 10 or 15 years in retirement. And they're retiring at 55 to 65 years old. So their thinking is that they're going to live into their 70s, and that was considered a good long life. So my first aha moment was around that time when my grandmother retired, and she retired at 55, and she lived to 96. And it occurred to me that she had 41 years of retirement, longer than she had worked, right? So I have to think that had she known she had 41 years in retirement, she would have done things totally differently. She would have planned totally differently. My personal aha moment that we had to kind of change our perspective on how we start to think about aging and the things that we have to plan for and the things that we didn't know we had to plan for. From an employer perspective, I think Bank of America has been on the forefront of this for many reasons, not the least of which is that we now have a workforce that spans 4 to 5 generations, and we have a shortage of workers. So we're engaged in a war for talent. People want to work longer, they need to work longer, and we understand also that there are fewer younger workers coming into the so that's a trend that threatens both operational efficiency and our effectiveness in the marketplace. So investment in retaining older workers is critical. And so we have really shined a light on this idea of giving older workers the ability and the means to stay in the workforce as long as they want or need to. And there's a benefit to that, right? Because it allows us to retain their knowledge, their skill set, their ability to train younger generations and foster and mentor those workers who are coming into the workplace. Now, there's another perspective that we have to take as an organization, and that's obviously the economic and business perspective. And so, the older population, we're driving the economy. I say we're, that feels so weird, but I am part of that older population, and we are driving the economy. The things that we need, the things that we purchase, services that we use. And so taking that idea of catering to those older generations allows us to design products and services that will actually serve the needs of that aging population. And so not only would we be doing a service to that aging population, but it's also critical to our company's growth and our sustainability within the financial services marketplace.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you for all the work that you have done in this space. And I think it's important as you're talking about sort of the change in the workforce, right? There is, because when we think about aging, it's really a combination of trends that come together. It is this idea that we're living longer because we have incredible advances in medicine and in healthcare and technology that have given us our longer lives. But at the same time, we do have these lower birth rates, and therefore we don't have as many younger people coming up in society, coming up in the workforce. And so we're kind of tackling all of these things together, and that's all encompassed in this sort of quote unquote aging mega trend. And so I think we need to consider that as well. And you have done that really beautifully in the work that you have done. So with those introductions, I think it's really fantastic to hear sort of your thought process behind why this becomes a priority for you. I think one of the things that we've learned over the years working with your companies and other GCOA members and other partners in this space is that your two areas come together, that the connection to health and wealth and finance and saving. And so both of those kind of align together. And so if we're healthier, then we have longer, earning potential. If we save better, then we have access to the health that we need. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of your overall kind of approaches and thinking about that as well. So Mike, you've come out with a lot of pieces in your own agenda called the Longevity Agenda that you and Bear last year, I think, launched. And I think in that you kind of lay out the priorities, right? What are our priorities for healthy aging? I want you to kind of tee us up with that and then connect it in with a lot of the work and research that Cindy's been doing that connects health and wealth together.
Great, thanks, Melissa. And I mean, Bayer is a healthcare company, and for us, innovation is the key driver of how we can have a positive impact on healthy aging. And we look at, and as I say, diseases such as cardiovascular disease, where that's critical. And I'm sure Cindy's grandmother lived to that fine old age because of great genes and a healthy lifestyle, but probably also access to a lot of medical innovation we've been able to deliver over the last few decades is an important part of that. But we're also at an exciting time about what more we can do, both with therapeutics, but also the application of digital tools, data science, precision medicine, where we can really start to give people more personalized treatment for their diseases as they accumulate as they do get older. And so that's one of the areas we're very much focusing on in our terms of our agenda and our focus on aging. So we have also gone into technologies such as cell therapy and gene therapy, which we believe can help with neurodegenerative conditions, heart disease, for example. So that's been important to us. And just cardiovascular disease, where Bayer has a long and fine heritage, but also continues to innovate. One of the figures that struck me is 40% of people over 65 and older will have some severe form of cardiovascular disease through the rest of their life. So we still have a lot of work to do there, even though we've made a great improvement. So chronic heart failure, chronic kidney disease, cardiomyopathy, those are areas we've really been focusing on, bringing new innovations and new data. And really that's been part of where our R&D strategy has been in terms of, for us, oncology, cardiovascular disease, urology and rare diseases such as Parkinson's disease and other neurodegenerative conditions, and immunology, which plays a key role. So it's really the focus is around how can we innovate and help bring those healthcare innovations that will turn those extra years into really healthy and productive years.
Yeah,
so back to you.
It's a lot to tackle, right? So there are a lot of different areas that you all are innovating in. And when we refer back to the decade of healthy aging, and one of the core tenets of that is to make sure that we're tackling ageism, because to achieve healthy aging, that is to achieve and be able to do the things that we value and that we want to take part in. It's not necessarily absence of disease. So how, what the work that you are doing is really helping to do that, and then not make this, and with these innovations, we don't make the assumption that just because you age, you will have chronic disease, but that we can innovate, we can treat, we can prevent. And I think your work in this space is really helping to move that needle, right? Because I think that is our role, is to help see what the future can be. And that is by getting ahead of these trends. So thank you for that and that description. Cindy, so as Mike and his work tries to make sure that people stay healthier for longer, that means for you on the finance side, you are trying to see how to make their money last longer. Tell us about, honestly, the considerable research that you have done in terms of how to help people like your grandmother kind of think about retirement differently and about how to save for hopefully a long and healthy future.
Yeah, so one of the taglines that we like to use is connecting your health span with your health span, right? And that's exactly what Mike and I are striving to do here. About 13, 14 years ago, as a firm, we started to undertake a new approach to investing, and we called it and those priorities include things like your health.
Sorry, Cindy, you cut out just a little bit. Let me back up to it's the 7 life priorities, right?
Yeah. So those 7 life priorities are your health, your home, your family, your finances, how you spend your leisure time, the importance of work in your and also in giving both to your community. And so obviously one of those life priorities was health. And that, when we surveyed our clients, turned out to be the single most important of these, because they're starting to recognize that if they don't take care of their health, everything else that they do is meaningless, right? And it's funny because my grandmother, again, obviously she had a huge influence on me. She used to say, if you have your health, you have everything. Now, I didn't understand that when I was 18 and couldn't see past Friday night. But now that I'm into my 60s, I understand that completely, and it's become very important. We've done around foundational research of the life priorities is we have gotten our financial advisors, both on the institutional side and on the research, to approach their conversation differently about retirement and talk about those non-quantifiable issues that need to be considered. Also, that we're educating clients on things like longevity planning, caregiving, and the impact of caregiving on finances as they do. Income sustainability for 10, 20, 30, even 40 years in retirement. Long-term care, and how does that impact our finances, and how can we plan durable expense in the event that it is necessary for ourselves, our spouse, or even our parents. On the employer side or the institutional side of the business, as a result of all of that research and then the understanding what they're having to think about, they're now able to encourage their employees to start saving earlier, start saving sooner, take advantage of some of the things that they can add to their employer-sponsored retirement plans, like their 401k, things like auto enrollment, auto increase, catch-up contributions for those who are over 50. All of those things factor into this whole longevity equation in the planning for your finances. And finally, to make the connection between health literacy is extremely important, and we're encouraging to educate on relevant topics such as cognitive decline, planning for the unexpected healthcare types of things, and obviously caregiving comes into that as well. But that health literacy, together with wealth literacy, is really important in being able to give them the complete package of planning for that long-term retirement.
Yeah, I think that's great that in terms of a financial institution saying, we understand that health is a priority, and that's going to help us work better with you to plan better for your future. So the fact that you focus so much on this, and your time and your energy, and your expertise, Cindy, I think is incredible. Your clients on the institutional side and the individual side are very fortunate in that. I mean, there's a whole training for your advisors that help people kind of think through this. And I always think that too, when like a younger person in their 20s, like, I'm going to retire really early. I'm going to retire when I'm 35, when I'm 40. I'm like, but do you understand the longevity trends? That's great if you're able to do it financially. Do you encounter that a lot, and how do you address it? Sorry, it's just my own curious and thing I want to know.
I'll be honest, I'm not encountering that a whole lot. I think there's more fear out there because we're living longer, that the younger people are thinking they're going to have to work forever. It's not what they want, but they are recognizing that they're probably going to have to work longer. But it's not just a financial reason. I think that even though the younger generations are not they're not getting their identity from their work as much from other activities, they are start thinking about, how will I fill my time? And so when they think about working longer, they're thinking about staying engaged, staying active, staying social, not being isolated. And that's really important too. They need to understand a whole lot more that comes from work than paycheck.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that insight. I want to, since you mentioned caregiving, I want to hit on the topic of caregiving, because we can't we can't address this topic of healthy aging, silver economy, our longer lives, if we don't address this challenge of elder caregiving that increases, of course, as we age. And I know, Cindy, you're tackling that from an employer point of view, but also from a savings point of view. And then, Mike, when you think about the work that you're doing in the health space, the impact is not just for the individual or for the patient, but it has these knock-on effects in terms of caregiving. So, I mean, I'd love to just talk about this a little bit. Maybe, Cindy, we will start with you in terms of how do we best support caregivers? How do we tackle what is this new challenge, which caregiving for an aging loved one can be a very beautiful and fulfilling thing. At the same time, it can be very taxing in terms of physical strain, mental strain, financial strain. So how do we best support caregivers?
So let me just start off, sort of piggyback on what you just said, because caregiving can be a very fulfilling experience, but it can also be very stressful. When we did our first study around caregiving, and this has been several years, one of the things that came out in our surveys was that people felt that they wanted to be caregivers. They were happy to do it. They felt blessed that they had had the opportunity to do that kind of thing for someone that they love very much. And so they considered it a blessing, but they also recognized that it was very stressful. It was taxing on their wallets. It was taxing on their families, and it can be all consuming. So there are a lot of things employers can do to help relieve that caregiver stress. One of the biggest things that, and I have to say, at Bank of America has been on the leading edge of providing caregiver benefits. We've been doing this several years now. One of the things we offer is backup care. Now, from an employer.
All right, I think we lost Cindy. She was talking about some of the great benefits, and if when we get her back, she'll continue. Oh, we got you back. You were talking about the benefits.
Yeah, so I apologize for that. I'm having a little bit of a technical issue. So those emergency backup care benefits are really important for the employer. It encourages people to come to work, right? Instead of having to stay home because your caregiver did not show up or whatever it might be. But from the employee perspective, that is a big relief, knowing that in the event that you have that emergency where your caregiver can't come, you can continue to do your daily routine and get that service. Another thing that, and there's some things that employers can do that not necessarily a costly benefit, things like hybrid work situations that they can offer. Flexible work schedules. So if someone has a caregiving issue in the morning, maybe that person can come in and work starting at 11 and working until 7 instead of whatever it might be. We also offer legal services, because what we have found is that many caregivers don't have the legal documents in place to actually provide care for their care recipients. So things like someone who can draw up a healthcare directive, a healthcare proxy, a will, powers of attorney, those sorts of things that are necessary that maybe had not been thought of. And then there are two things that I think are really important that address caregiver stress and the mental health aspects of it. One is EAPs, right? Employee Assistance Program. Our EAP offers counseling to family members, caregiver support, and it does not have to be a counseling situation that's needed because of a caregiving situation of anything. And that kind of stress that caregiving can put on your family relationships, spousal relationship, and so if you need marriage counseling, for instance, that EAP can help you out with that. Worth mentioning that can be done at the resource groups. For Bank of America, we have a Parents and Caregivers Network, and our global membership in that network is over 20,000 people. So that's just an opportunity for people who are in similar situations to come together and get support from each. I think that's really important too. So that's just some of the things that employers can do to help out their caregiving workforce.
Thanks for all that work. A lot. It's recognizing the trends. Mike, go ahead.
So I don't have a lot to add. I think Cindy and Bank of America are really doing a pretty fine job of covering all the key topics and areas I would see in terms of supporting caregivers who are a critical part of society and healthy aging, and also in the workforce. I guess I'd add, I think we see ways where we can maybe use technology to help people keep in touch when they're not necessarily in the home with their loved ones, their elderly family members, and how they can also support each other that way. And just making sure this is supported and encouraged by also by the government and social systems that recognize what a critical role this is in maintaining a healthy and productive society. But I think Cindy really had a very nice overview of what we should be doing and what is best practice in supporting caregivers.
Yeah, it's really impressive work. I'm going to pause real quick just to remind folks, if you have any questions for Cindy or for Mike, please feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll take a look at those as we continue going through this conversation. So I want to turn to a topic that's related to caregiving, because we recognize, and it's women in the silver economy, we recognize that women represent at least 2/3 of the caregivers. Women live longer, women earn lower lifetime incomes, women face higher healthcare challenges, spending more on healthcare over a lifetime, 18% more in the US, and then globally spending 25% more of their lives than men in poor health. So when we think about overall aging trends, we think about the disproportionate impacts on women. It's really become a topic that's very important to Global Coalition on Aging, with the creation of our Women in the Silver Economy Council, WISE for short. Both of your organizations have been very active as we've been trying to start up this effort to highlight how to tackle barriers for women, again, who are drivers in the silver economy, right? Living longer, but also making the purchasing decisions and the healthcare decisions for their families, and in control of most of the disposable income. So, and I know both of you have touched on the topic of menopause in the work that you do and supporting older women. So why is it, tell us from your perspective, why is it important to consider the silver economy through the gender lens?
Do I give it a go, Melissa, to start?
Go for it.
This is a real area of passion and importance for me and for Bayer, and really credit to the GCOA for starting up the Women in the Silver Economy Council. I think that's a very impressive and powerful group, because we do have what I call the aging gender gap. So this failure to recognize the impact around health, economy, and the biological differences that are inherent in gender differences. And unfortunately, this usually leads to situations which are the detriment of women, all these things when they come together. You mentioned some of them. Women outlive men. Men tend to have cognitive decline sooner and faster. Women are more prone though to age-related conditions like osteoporosis. Men go to the doctor less, but women often spend much of their later years currently still with various disabilities. And then menopause is an area where we've been very active in research and offering therapy, and just some pretty staggering numbers by 2030. So pretty soon, there'll be 1.2 billion women projected to be in the menopause, and 47 million new entrants each year. And there's a lot of burdens that come with this in terms of the hot flashes, the mood swings, sleep disturbance, which is quite under-recognized, but has a big impact on women going through the menopause, as well as things such as bone health and cardiovascular disease. So we need to have better options. Not treatment options is one thing, but also a workplace and an environment that recognizes and is supportive for women as they go through this, because it's often when they're at their most productive and active in the workforce. And how do we do this with new therapies, but also tools such as apps and wearables, precision medicine, counseling, support, and as I say, a workplace that hopefully is as supportive and understanding of women in this situation. And going forward, more generally, we still don't have enough women represented in clinical trials. The medical profession, although women are now in many countries an equal part of the going in workforce, often still it's gender biased against women in terms of decision making, understanding, treatment. So women often have worse outcomes when they suffer cardiovascular disease because the symptoms of a heart attack are described for a usually typical male. Women sometimes are often present with different symptoms and are sometimes treated later less well because of some of those things. So we need to bring this to a level playing field in a situation where those gender differences are recognized so that women, we don't have that aging gender gap, as I said.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take on. And I think it's fantastic that you guys are focused in this space. You talk about the gender bias, the challenges in clinical trials, here in the United States. We've just recognized the 30-year anniversary of the Revitalization Act, where it was mandated to have women and minorities part of clinical trials. But over those 30 years, we really quite haven't made that progress we need to. So we are seeing kind of more energy on this topic of making sure we have women's health research. And it was described to me with some of our friends in the cardiovascular space that for too long in research, women have been looked at as small men. And that is not going to tell us what we need to know about how to treat women's health issues. So we have a lot, I think we have a lot of work to do in this space, but we need to keep talking about it. We need to bring it to light, right? And then on the workforce topic, and so I'll turn it to you, Cindy. On menopause and just sort of recognizing differences that women face in terms of the caregiving responsibilities as an employee, and menopause where women are just kind of taught to power through that or not expected to stay in the workforce long enough to go through menopause. So would love to hear your perspectives on how you guys are looking at this with the gender lens, Cindy.
Sure, and I just want to tack on to what Michael just said, because one of the biggest issues that we encounter in the workplace is that our health benefits do not cover things like hormone replacement therapy, as an example. Kind of need to get the health insurance companies to catch up and recognize that some of these health situations that are associated with menopause need to be covered, and we need to stop and recognize that they do have health issues, especially as they age. On the topic of caregiving, we know that about 70% of caregivers are women, and women are leaving the work to care for an aging parent or to care for their children, right? So there's several opportunities and challenges that women are facing as they cycle in and out of that caregiving role, whether it be for their children or for their parents or for their spouse. One of those challenges is that this cycle in and out creates an earnings gap between men and women over there. And to give you an example, a woman that takes just one break in her work, in her career, leaves on the table on average about $325,000 in income and benefits, versus men who are taking these breaks from service much less frequently. They're only leaving on the table about $284,000 their lifetime. And so that's a pretty big gap or income gap that we're leaving on the table. But it also has other effects. It has effects on their career advancement. Many women find that they will turn down promotions because they are not in a position to take on that extra responsibility as they're caring for their children or for their. It has effects on their pension if a pension is offered in their particular company, where they're leaving in their peak earnings. Their pension is lower. Effect on their Social Security, and there's order things significantly lower from a Social Security perspective. It also has effect on their health, and here we'll make that connection again with what Mike was saying, but women caregivers versus versus women who are not caregivers are more likely to suffer from chronic conditions, heart disease, stroke, all of those stress-related illnesses, depression. They're more likely to have more than morbidity at a time that they're dealing with, and so their health issues are amplified if they're in a caregiving role. So not only dealing with as they age, but they're also dealing with those health issues as well.
It's a lot to take on. And I think it's great that we are talking about this and addressing it and figuring out what we can do. And so hopefully through the work of WISE with your organizations and others to join in our efforts, we can help make a difference and keep women as healthy as possible, as productive as possible for as long as possible, and earning for as long as possible, if that is what we choose to do. So I'm going to switch to a slightly different topic. We may come back to this one if we have time, because I do see some questions in the Q&A. But there's a specific question from Mike about innovation. I actually wanted to ask this as well. You touched on this as one of the key contributors to healthy aging. And so one of our attendees asks, where do you see some places that have been positive, and where are we having issues in public policy for innovation?
So, great question. And from my point of view, innovation is a critical part of achieving this. I think what we need to see is a recognition that innovation is usually incremental. We make step changes, we make improvements to how we treat heart failure, and we need a system both within industry and research, but also from funders, government, insurers that recognize each of these steps add up to something which can be very powerful. But if you don't accept that you're in an environment where steps are incremental, not necessarily paradigm shifts with each piece of new research or each new treatment, you'll ultimately hold back a lot of important care and development. I think we do see, I think, great opportunities for collaboration in areas such as heart failure, where collaborations between government researchers, academics, and industry have brought forth some great innovations over the last decade or so. And we start to see on the horizon potentially impact on neurodegenerative conditions. But again, that will require this collaboration of all the stakeholders involved, because no one's going to manage this on their own. And we also then need an efficient system for making these innovations available in society so that people can access them fairly and equitably. And also, we'll see increasing burden of these diseases in developing countries over the next 2 or 3 decades. And the time to start working on this is now, not in 10 or 20 years' time when this impact will already be with us. So I think the positives are, the steps we've seen in some of the key innovations. The challenge is that we recognize we have to get going with all these things now and make all those small steps that eventually will lead to a very, I hope, significant impact on health and healthy aging.
Yeah, I think that point in terms of making sure we have continued investments in innovation, recognizing the innovations in medicine and healthcare have got us to where we are today. So we certainly can't just stop innovating. And so we need to have that continued flow and fluctuation of investment into the space, particularly in innovative medicines, and then the access to those innovations as we have more and more older people and being vulnerable populations. And we see this with minority communities as well, making sure that we can get access to that innovation equitably requires policy innovations and making sure that we put people at the center of that. And I think clearly those are huge challenges as we're looking at the high cost of healthcare for an older population. But I think that's something that we've talked about. And one of the webinars here talked about being able to sustainably finance our healthcare systems. And so I think that's something we'll be talking about a lot. But thanks so much for that question. Cindy, do you have anything to add in terms of innovations you're seeing on your side in financial services? You talked about a lot of the benefits and things that you're doing on your side, which are definitely innovations that we'd like to see picked up a lot more. But any other comments on that?
Yeah, so the obvious one is, from a financial services point of view, the obvious one is the convenience of being able to do it. That's a huge innovation where people are able to do their banking, do their management of their 401ks, all of this, giving us incredible convenience. One that I would mention on the health side is telemedicine. I think that has opened up the world of healthcare in a way that would not have even been imaginable 20 years ago. On the employer plan side of things, ERISA continues to be it's constantly changing their new innovative types of auto increase like that. And then two other financial products I think are pretty innovative. One is the health, so that you can it has a triple tax advantage healthcare and using that. And then target date funds are really important. This is something where a young saver or older saver who doesn't really understand investing in something in a mutual fund that's give the best asset allocation based on the date where you're the. That's important because a lot of people are not contributing to these employer retirement because they don't know money, and so they're very. Those target date funds make it a lot easier for everyone to invest in their.
Yeah, so I think that's always the challenge. We don't know exactly how long we are going to live, but we need to plan for what we think is going to happen. And that it relates, and some of the things you were saying there, Cindy. We do have a question from Natalia, and she says on the caregiving topic, basically her question is, have you identified any global models or private market solutions that help innovatively fund caregiving, considering people want to age in place, they want to age at home? Are you seeing anything from a global perspective to kind of help us think about overall financing caregiving?
Well, the short answer is not really. I think that the marketplace is woefully lacking in financial solutions to this problem. Traditionally, when we think about caregiving and care and insurance, we're thinking about that traditional long-term care insurance that works kind of like your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance, and or where you pay a premium and if you don't use the benefit, you lose that money. There are some hybrid products out there that are coming to market where you can have a combination of life insurance and long-term care insurance, and those seem to be catching on. But they've been around for quite a while. I'm not seeing any real new innovative types of products to help people deal with the financial strain of caregiving.
We'll work on that one for sure. There's another question in the chat, which I really like, and it's related to something I want to get your thoughts on. But one of our attendees says Bank of America has been linking the growth and development of economies generally with the silver economy. How do we get more businesses to recognize and act in this area? How do we get others to step up? What's going to give them the aha moments that you guys had?
I think that first would be education, and just to be out there and be loud about it. Talk about what we are doing and why it's so important, and talk about the benefits that we're offering, and just do panels like this that really can shine a light on what the need is, what the problem is. And then hopefully have conversations, even if it's with a competitor, to help them to see the light. I think it's really important. in the benefits world, in the workplace benefits world, we do things like we have a annual client conference as an example. And at that client conference, we're talking about these sorts of things. We're talking about caregiving. We're talking about the needs of the employees to get more from their employers in terms of helping them, not just with their career and their retirement financial life, but their life all around. I think until we start to really acknowledge that longevity is an issue, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And as soon as when we can get businesses to understand the opportunity and the what's in it for them, I think that it's like turning a cruise ship, but it'll turn.
Mike, what do you think? How do we get others
So,
to follow, please?
I think for me, GSOA has a key role in that, as really a place to convene. I personally have, are very passionate, and whenever I'm talking to colleagues in other companies in our industry, I really encourage them to look at this topic through the lens of aging, rather than just purely the lens of a particular therapeutic indication. I see also in the financial services, some companies also taking note of the work Bank of America have done. But it's I think remarkable still the gap between people maybe reading some of these statistics about how our societies are aging and not acting now. So I think it's about communication, building coalitions, and really helping the wider society understand what's happening, because it's a very positive topic, in my opinion, sometimes presented, as a crisis. I think it only becomes a crisis if we fail to act and fail to apply all the tools and technologies and brain power we have available to fix this across society.
I agree with that. And I think it's that's what we've always tried to do, is to show that this could be a net positive if we take the right steps to make the change that we need. And I think what's important for us and what we want to be doing at the Global Coalition on Aging with your help is to bring different sectors to this, right? Health and finance, you all see this as an opportunity, but across consumer products, across transportation, across the travel sector, where we had a conversation last week about how can the travel sector, take advantage of this trend that should be a positive thing. More people, older people, can travel, want to travel, can be healthier because they travel, but they need to save for it. That's an important piece of our conversation, for instance, that we want to bring to the fore. So I would love it that, if we'd be able to do that with your help. With a little bit of time left, I just have one more question for both of you, and that's really us kind of looking to Silver Economy Forums. Coming up in 1 month, we'll be together at Bayer's campus in Berlin. Mike, thank you so much for hosting us. What are you looking forward to at Silver Economy Forum in terms of what we learned in the past or what we hope to learn at this next foray? And please, everyone, know that if you're on this webinar, you are invited. Please reach out to us if you don't have that information yet, but we would love to have you. And I'll let either one of you take that. But what are you looking forward to at Silver Economy Forum?
So maybe I give it a go first, Melissa, since, as you say, we are hosting. So I'm really excited that after this decade-long journey with the Global Coalition, that Bayer will be hosting in our Berlin campus in a few weeks' time. I joined the first Silver Economy Forum in Helsinki in 2019, and that really was, for me, a revelation, because as someone who's worked their whole career in healthcare and science and medical research, to be in a forum where you have such a broad range of stakeholders together of such high quality, that really was a great learning and growth experience for me. And I think we need to continue on that, continue with the United Nations Decade of a Healthy Aging, but really the convening power of the Global Coalition and at the Silver Economy is a chance to build links and discussions and collaborations that are not otherwise easily come, because it would not be so obvious for me to be in a discussion with Cindy or with colleagues from the non-government organizations on these topics. So I think it's really an opportunity to continue to take us forward on this journey, and also hopefully build some exciting partnerships and collaborations, and also for those who come in person to enjoy Berlin, which is a wonderful, exciting, fun city.
And
So
I
you.
think that the Silver Economy Forum is an opportunity to engage in dialogue across so many different sectors. And what we tend to find out there is that even though we're all from different parts of the world, different sectors of the economy, we all have a lot in common in the problems that we're trying to tackle. And so it's an opportunity to learn what's working in other countries, and then apply those learnings so that we can take that back and invest in innovative products and solutions to an aging economy. And I think it's a great forum.
Well, with that, again, I'm going to invite everyone to join us, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual. And I do agree, and I hope that's what we try to make this is an opportunity for dialogue and for collaboration, because we're all in this together. And so we have to work together to lead towards the future that we want to have, right? Doing it for today's older generation, tomorrow's, and our children's to follow that. So we need to get it right. So we just appreciate all the work that you're doing to get it right. We want to thank the American Council in Germany for partnering with us on Silver Economy Forum this year. And we're just looking forward to a very dynamic dialogue on October 16th. And I want to thank everyone who joined us for today's webinar, and hope we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Cindy.